This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you in partnership with ministryleague.com. We would love for more people to discover this show, so please rate and review us on iTunes or your podcast provider. Feel free to share on your social media and subscribe at benandtravis.com for the free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living.
Welcome back to the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis. And obviously, Will is along for the ride as well. I'm doing great, blessed to be back with all of you. And Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's been a pretty good week. It's a busy week. The last couple of weeks have just been on the go, but excited to be here as usual. And this is always a time of the week that I look forward to when we get to collaborate a little bit, hang out for a little while, even if it's at a distance. It's always fun. And of course, Will is with us as well. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Still trucking along with the marathon training. Hopefully getting a little closer. Come December, we'll be ready to go. So if I got to work on the eating a little bit, but we're making progress.
I have been looking forward to this day. As we posted last few weeks ago, my wife and I were on a podcast called a Foster Care and Unparalleled Journey, and we had some great hosts on there, Jordan Palmer or the Palmers, and that was pretty cool. And they pushed us and the direction of our guest today, and I'm just so excited that he was able to find some time to fit us in. John Williams is with us from lifethatcounts.org. Find him on Facebook and on social media and go to that website and listen to some of the stuff that he's doing. He has a podcast. Obviously, we would love for you to talk about any of that you'd like to share with us, John, but welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. What we do at Life That Counts is, everything that we do is to help others make better decisions for more healthy outcomes. As I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit, but my kind of, I feel like I'm the least likely candidate to be here still. And I mean by be here still is I've just seen the work of God in my life and now through the life of my wife and my kids as well. And it's just everyday gratitude, man. Habitually successful kind of everyday gratitude kind of a thing. So it's good to be here with you guys.
That's what this show is about, really, is the realness, the genuineness of serving the Lord, and where he shows up and shows out. It's a phrase that we use a lot. And, it is in those moments where it's not glorious. I've battled leukemia. And, it's in the moments, not necessarily when everybody's rah-rahing, which I had a lot of cheerleaders, had a lot of people behind me, had a lot of people praying for me, but it's in those moments where it's absolutely drudgery, really. It gets into that moment where, hey, I've just got to put the next foot in front of the other and trust where God is leading us. And, we ask you, about your specific job description, and I love it. And I love the straight to the point, right? I help change lives, and really what is our calling period in this life, but to help others, and really from a biblical standpoint, help those who could never return the favor. I think about Jesus. There's no way that we could ever do Jesus a favor. We can't return anything to him that he's not already done for us. And so now I'm called to love my neighbor, to help my neighbor in any way that I can, whatever small way that is. And so, we talked a little bit about your website. I know you've got something super exciting that's coming up. And if you want to talk a little bit about that, about what's coming out in just the next few weeks and maybe your topic that you'll be discussing.
The TED event that we had the opportunity to do with Wilson Park. And I'm so thankful for that group of people up in Florence who persevered They had every reason in the world to cancel the event altogether, and they didn't. They persevered. They went, they put it on. We had a great day. Got some wonderful content recorded, and my part of it that day was to answer the what if question. What if we never had another school shooting? And for me, this comes out of, a couple of areas of my life. It comes out of an experience that I had in sixth grade when a friend brought a gun to school. And then it comes from just the work that we do here at Life That Counts, in schools, on campus, during instructional hours for social emotional health with students.
That's really awesome. That's a good work. I work with an elementary school in Florence, and part of what I do there is kind of the emotional intelligence stuff. I go around even to these are just the little kids, and we just talk about emotional intelligence and what that means and being able to make good, smart choices. And I'm sure that you're familiar with that concept and all of those different things. And so that's a huge work. So you travel around to some of the schools, I guess, in Alabama, outside of Alabama, anywhere that they call you to come and be a part of that?
Yeah, so we currently are serving under two federal funding streams, and we have weekly active programs in Alabama, Indiana, Illinois, and Montana. So we do, of course, travel outside of those areas as well as schools call us in, whether it be a one-day event or a multiple day training, or to partner with them to help almost custom build a scenario for them. And every bit of it is to help build a healthier, stronger, more safe campus for students. Here's what we know about our environments. If you enjoy the environment that you're in, you're probably going to want to show up the next time. And if you can learn to enjoy the people that you're with and have authentic, healthy relationships and work toward healthy relationships, then chances are things like discipline referrals, which are, school students getting suspended or expelled or sent to alternative school, those types of things are going to diminish. Well, if they're wanting to go, Will, you're a youth minister. You've probably experienced it where a parent has used youth group as a form of like, hey, you're not going to youth group unless you get your homework done. You ever had one of those? I remember those.
Absolutely.
Those always, yeah, they make you feel good as a youth minister, right? They're like, yeah, I'm there, baby. So, if you can facilitate and create an environment where kids want to show up, and you can help provide the emotional awareness or the emotional intelligence so that we can be other-centered serving, because as we know, everything about adolescence is driven toward narcissism, where we are the most narcissistic we will ever be during our adolescent development. So between the ages of 12 and 17 years old, because it's self, and also between those same ages of 12 to 17 years old, we need to be needed. We need to be accepted, and we need to be needed and accepted by our peer group. It's something that we long for. We long for that acceptance from our peer group. And if you think about it this way, as kids grow and develop, so when a baby's born, he or she essentially makes no decision for themselves. They don't decide what they eat. They don't decide what they wear. I would never put a bow in my hair now, right? Like, come on, really? That's just different. And anyway, but as a human grows and gets older and becomes a pre-adolescent and then into adolescence, into what we call those teenage years, those students begin to make more and more decisions for themselves, and they in some regards they break away, if you will, from even the traditional or historical or normal decisions, normative decisions that their parents or primary caregivers have set out for them. So as they break away and as they need to be needed, then that social environment becomes extremely important for the development of adolescent health, which, by the way, one of the things that we're experiencing right now with the shutdown and trying to do life through video. I mean, this is fun. Like I appreciate having the technology and having the internet, but you know, it's better when we're actually around the table. You know, we can breathe the same oxygen and hopefully not get sick. You know, we can experience the same kind of setting and that kind of deal. We can you know, there's so much more of us that we can experience in those existential moments, and our kids are really missing that. And in many ways, I would say, in the name of public health, and this may sound a little controversial, but in the name of public health, I think by and large, we're going to look back on the decision to shut down and to be so cautious as we have. I think in 5 years, we're going to question why we did this. I think we're going to wonder if we made the right decision because of the ramifications that we are currently experiencing and we will experience as a result from keeping kids isolated from one another. You know, I mean, we can dress this thing up with all of the terminology that we want to, you know, what is it? Not isolated. There's another word that we choose to dress this thing up with to make it sound more appealing. But our kids, no man is an island, right? And we need community. We were, anthropologically speaking, even in our faith, we were created to be in community. We were created to be in community with one another. And anyway, there's just a lot missing there. But kind of getting back to what we're able to do on campus, when kids want to show up to their environment, and when they're learning how to navigate those interpersonal relationships with one another, well, learning happens. The learning process happens. And as a result of helping students figure out how to helping administrators and, you know, decision makers, faculty members, et cetera, helping these folks figure out how to, you know, create more healthy, more sustainable, safer environments for kids, more emotionally vulnerable and safer environments, then the learning process takes place. And some of the outcomes that we've observed is that test scores actually do increase. Things like school attendance, it increases. Discipline referrals decrease. And we've seen this stuff at Seattle. Man, schools that we've worked with, like, dude, even the football team has got better. Like the band's got better, you know, like the athletic, you know, the clubs or whatever's got better. And I want to say this because it needs to be added to provide a little bit of context. Why such a big emphasis, John, on healthy relationships and helping one another do community better? Do you guys have kids? Travis, Ben, Will, you guys have kids? You have kids.
Yes.
Your kids ever gotten a fight in the back seat or in the car or at home, or they've ever had a disagreement one with another?
It's a better question. Have they not?
Have they ever
been a
not
time when they
been
hadn't?
an
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. So my wife and I, we have two boys. We have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. And yes, there have been times. Let me ask you guys this. Have you ever got in a fight or an argument with your wife? You ever had a disagreement with your... Never.
We've never even had an argument with each other in this group.
See, there you go. There you go. So
and sarcasm is thick right now. So go ahead.
Sarcasm is really thick. Yeah. So for the listening audience, so you know, they're laying it on thick and heavy, because here's what we know. We know that in marital community with our wife, with your husband, we know in that community that there's a rub, that we are working. We are working to get better. We may not be working hard to get to heaven because Jesus has paid it all on the cross for our sins. So there's never going to come a day where I'd like just nail it worthily deserving of my own salvation, right? Because Christ paid for that. But we are growing and we are working to do tomorrow better than yesterday, and particularly in relational community with our wife or with your husband. So in that case, my kids have seen Alexis and I get into an argument. They've seen us fight. They've seen us disagree. They've seen us have moments where we just completely misunderstand one another. And they've also seen moments where we work it out. They've also observed how we get out of that hyperventilated emotional headspace and we're like, okay, come on, let's bring this down a bit. Do you want tacos or sushi? You know, like, this is simple. This is easy, right? What do you want? And just boiling it down and thinking logically and things like that, and working together. And so why is this important? Why is it important for kids to see healthy relationships modeled? Well, kids typically imitate what they see. They typically imitate what has been modeled for them. It's important because 7 out of 10 kids in our country today, according to the last Census Bureau. Now, I'm curious to see what the new one shows us. But according to the last Census Bureau, when you overlap that information with the information from the Center for Disease Control, what you discover is that 7 out of 10 kids in our schools today, if the average classroom size is 30, they come from homes where there's one or less biological parent. One or less. The same numbers indicate that, now this is the U.S. Census Bureau and it's the Center for Disease Control. If you overlap the numbers, it shows us 3 out of 10 students come from homes where there's one or more parent in the home, biological parent in the home, one or more biological parent in the home. Why is that important by the time you reach your freshman year? It's important by the time you reach your freshman year. What if as a 7th grader, you've seen your parents get in a fight and never make up and it ended in this thing called divorce? Well, what's been modeled for you as an adolescent youth? Well, the thing that's been modeled for you is, hey, anytime I get into an argument, we're just not going to do life anymore. I'm going to ghost you. I'm going to unfriend you. I'm going to turn my back on you.
I'm so thankful. You know, my parents divorced when I was a kid, and you know, I was blessed that both my parents had big families, large families, like 10, 11 brothers and sisters. And so I had plenty of examples. You know, Ben's parents, you know, they were a tremendous example to me. And so I got to see them live out, you know, not perfect with no arguments, but what you're saying is I got to see people who could work things out, you know, who did model that. And so, you know, I can't imagine, you know, as difficult it was with me with one parent at home, and she did a wonderful job, as good as she could do. But, you know, to have those examples, but also at church, you know, the church plays that role as well. You know, obviously the illustration there is Christ is the head of the church, the husband, the body is the wife, you know, the church is the wife. And so, you know, you're absolutely true, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I coach football. You know, how do we work out our differences, you know? And one thing that's been amazing is like how little practice has been missed this year compared to years previous. Kids are just hungry, you know, they're just starving for that community that you're talking about, you know, and, you know, all that stuff that you just said resonates with me because my freshman year, you know, what have I seen, you know, and I was very blessed to have people like Ben's parents and other aunts and uncles and people in the church who modeled those things for me of how you have a healthy relationship. A healthy relationship is not one where you never argue or have discussions or debates, but ones where you can figure out how to bring it down, you know, and conversate and have that discussion. It's not a fight. It's a discussion, and at worst, it's an argument, you know, that at the end of the day doesn't end the relationship.
Yeah, and if you'll allow me to kind of jump in on this too, something that I think is interesting, and one of the reasons that I talk with the kids, and I don't, you know, go around to the first graders and go, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. I do kind of bring that up and just sort of explain what that means. But Goldman wrote a book by that title, and one of the things he said in that was, you've got you know, a lot of businesses are looking, or corporations maybe looking for a CEO who has whatever IQ, this great, strong IQ. But he said, you may have 3 guys that have basically the same IQ across the board. How do you differentiate between the ones to hire the guy or the girl who's, you know, who is best for that job? And it usually comes down to who can sort out problems, who can deal with the the issues that come along with running a business, who can emotionally handle those things. And that's kind of what you're getting at, is you guys are teaching teenagers sort of how to get along, how to deal with tough stuff.
I resonate with you a little bit, Travis. I'm growing up. I never met my biological father. The church for us, and I don't mean the church, the body, like the people. I mean the church, the building, for us was a safe haven. My uncle was the worst kind of alcoholic, and when he would drink, which was daily, my mom would take me and my kid brother, and we would retreat to the church and vacuum the floor, or drive through McDonald's and eat some food in the fellowship hall, or something like that. And so just kind of back on that, and yeah, I want to say this too, and for your listening audience, this will be a tough statement. So I said to you guys, I was in full-time student ministry for 15 years. Well, part of what you may not know, I was fired from churches 11 times. It never was anything illegal. Never was anything immoral. I never had an inappropriate relationship with my secretary, except for that one time when my secretary was my wife. It was always serving with churches who had other ministry staff who sometimes egos would get in the way. And not even differences of opinion on interpretation of scripture or thing like that. I mean, it was just, guys, just bottom line, male chauvinistic ego, guys who just can't share the same space with one another for whatever reason, and that's the kind of stuff that I experienced. So when I hear you say that the church is to be a model of relational community, I agree it is to be the model, but I would also be a very strong advocate to say that we get into it over the dumbest stuff imaginable. And
Crazy.
I wonder how often in so many of our petty, just really stupid differences that have divided us for 100 years, I wonder how often Jesus himself isn't embarrassed of us, to be honest. I mean, I wonder how many times when we're supposed to be coming to maturity in the faith. I mean, look at the world around us right now. And here's my thing. I don't want to say where is the church, but where is the church? In Matthew, I believe there's this line where Jesus is talking and he says, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence and the violent take it by force. And I know that everything that we do in the life of the life of this organization that I've been able to create, it's not come by pitter-pattering around or tiptoeing. It's come by intentional, well-executed, day after day after day, get up, put in the reps, figure it out, have your goal, back into that goal with your action plan. I keep praying for the guy who can boldly stand in love and say, there is a righteous God, there is a sinless Savior who died in your place, in my place, for my sin. And by the way, what is sin? Because we don't really use that archery term anymore. So let's get in that. And let's get in how we talk about we've missed the mark. Because you do have to figure out a way to do it with love. You do have to figure out a way to demonstrate love. You do have to figure out a way. You stand for truth and you walk in compassion and you demonstrate love. One of the toughest things to do as a father is to know the difference. As a parent, one of the most difficult things to do is to know when to give a hug and to know when to give a kick in the seat of the pants. And if you give a hug when you should be giving a kick in the seat of the pants, you can potentially over time spoil your kid if you consistently get that one wrong. And if you give a kick in the seat of the pants when you should be giving a hug consistently over the course of time, you're going to break the spirit of your kid. And this is where, when we approach our society and our culture and the world around us, we're not always coming with a megaphone screaming, some really difficult, some weighty, hard to carry message. I mean, Jesus says, hey, come get to know me. My burden, my yoke is easy. The job that I have for you. Look, I just want you to be faithful. I just want you to show up. My burden is light. Come get to know me. So that's one of the things that I think we have to figure out how to do, is we have to speak truth in love, and we also have to speak truth without fear or regard of the judgment of the other, or even in many cases, the perceived judgment of the other. We were talking about earlier, I get to do community in this group. It's called the Dad's Edge Alliance. And I'm going to tell you what, I mean, dude, most of the guys in the group, they'll tell you they're more lost than Dick Cheney in the woods, and I mean, they'll like, yeah, I am searching for something. I am looking for a way, because everything that I've done thus far isn't working at all. And over the last 2 months, we've gone through this book. I've not even read it. The book's No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's just kind of a blatant riddle of humanism. But the big idea is, how can we stand up and be men in a world that's constantly trying to push you into some different kind of a mold? How can you stand up and lead the life that you want to live? And so there's this concept in the book, the No More Mr. Nice Guy, of the integrated man. And so this is what you do with the content on the integrated man. You pull 100-year-old Cambridge dictionary or Oxford English dictionary off yourself, and you figure out that the word integrated means mature and complete, lacking nothing. That sounds like a Bible verse.
Familiar.
Yeah, a little
Oh,
bit.
but wait, it is.
Yes.
And then you go to James, and you look at chapter 1, and you look at verse 3, and he says, brothers, what does he say to them in James 3? He says, brothers, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, because you know that the testing of your faith is going to produce perseverance, and let perseverance have its full and complete work, or its full work, so that you can be mature and complete, lacking nothing. And now we can have a conversation, because I can say to the guys, hey, what's your belief system? What's your hope riding on? At the end of the day, at the end of this thing, what are you doubling down on? What are you investing in? What are you absolutely certain is going to hold you when nothing else can be there to hold you? And then guys, I mean, guys are honest. They're logical, and they'll say things like, well, I it's not me, because I'm going to fail me. It's not my wife, because she's not perfect either. Lord knows it's not my kids. And it's not my job, because that could change in any minute. And then they come to the end, they exhaust the list, and they're like, that's the impossible question. I don't know, is what you'll hear guys say.
There's a complete freeing thing when I remind myself that my wife is already in love with the perfect man, and it's not me, it's Jesus. There's a lot of freedom there. Yeah. There's a lot of freedom there. As we kind of start to wrap up our first half of our interview, we got a few maybe fun questions to kind of end the episode. Okay. Will, you want to jump on one of those questions?
Yeah, I've got so many other questions, but we'll stay with the fun one. I'm enjoying it. I think there's a lot of things that our world needs to hear. A lot of things our young people need to hear that you're definitely out there saying. But one of my favorite things to do, I put my daughter in the car, 2 years old. We've got a Jeep, crank the radio up, and we just jam out. So when you've got to just let loose, let everything go, what's the song or the band or the artist that just really gets you going?
So last week I was leaving the office with my son, and we'd been here, way too long. Windows down, roof open, back glass open, and Thunderstruck by AC/DC.
Yes.
Just crank it up, man, and just go. If it's not something like that, I've had a lot of elevation. I've had a very healthy dose of elevation pumping through my veins here lately. So there you go. AC/DC, elevation.
Sometimes it's hard to maybe pick one, but do you ever have any of those movie moments or TV moments that you could recall where you maybe it's an emotional moment for you? And emotion can be obviously happy, sad, angry, frustrated, but do you have one in mind that you go, every time I watch that, I either cry? I'm not going to ask you to admit that you cry, but cry or scream at the TV or whatever.
So I'm kind of weird. Probably my hands down favorite movie ever is one that probably not a lot of people has ever seen. You guys remember Heath Ledger, the late Heath Ledger?
Yes.
He did a movie called A Knight's Tale. And the first date, like real date, my wife and I ever went on in high school was to this movie. And I remember watching this movie, and there were so many times in this movie I just got like so jacked up and like, this is awesome. And then at the end, when they're standing over the guy laying on the flat of his back, and they're talking about the brave new world. I love that movie.
That's awesome. It is a great movie and a great soundtrack. If you want to go back to the 80s
it's a
rock.
Great soundtrack. That's where the AC/DC came from, man.
John, we appreciate you being with us. We appreciate your message. We appreciate what you're doing. You just keep on trucking, man. And if there's any way that we can assist you, we would love nothing more than to do just that.
Guys, it's a pleasure to be on today.
Hey, Travis, what is the largest bone in the body?
That's the femur, that long bone that goes from your hip socket and connects to your knee.
So let's say that you fell and broke your femur. Do you fix it yourself?
I mean, if you're Batman, but those of us in the real world would go to a specialist to help set that bone back into place and begin that healing process.
Well, now what if your emotions get broken? What should you do? Do you fix it yourself, or might it be helpful for you to go and talk to a counselor who can help you get things straightened out?
I think you're talking about our sponsors at Serenity Counseling in Florence, Alabama, who offer help and healing and even a dose of humor to assist their clients every day.
Yeah, the ladies at Serenity Counseling, Becky, Amy, Monica, and Karen, they offer all sorts of different kinds of therapy, from your talk therapy that we're used to play therapy for children, even EMDR or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing for those who have gone through traumatic events, and then even equine assisted psychotherapy.
Wait a minute, Ben. There's a lot of big words that you just said. That last one, assisted therapy, what is all that about?
Equine assisted therapy, Travis. Equine means horses. They use horses for therapy. Yes, horses are included and present during some of their outdoor sessions. Approaching horses helps us reflect on how we approach our relationships and how we can face other big and overwhelming things in our lives.
Ben, that sounds like God showing up and showing out in his creation. Check out the link to their website in our show notes. If you've ever wondered if a counselor might be the answer to what you're struggling with, give them a call. Serenity Counseling, where hope is given and healing begins.
Serenity Counseling is located at 1954 Jackson Road in Florence, Alabama, and they can be reached at 256-263-6367, serenitycounselingshoals.org. Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.